look to your brothers to the left, to the right, up and down. They share similar struggles with you, similar, when you look at culture, food, life, language, and geographical location, and you see that something is working for your neighbor, that's where you want to look and pick one or two examples and see how you can translate that to your local community in your countries, instead of always looking into the West to see what they've done, how they've done it. It doesn't work for Africa. It's never worked for Africa. Even democracy is struggling in Africa because it's not homegrown. That's one of the things that we should also look at. Yes, we can practice democracy. However, can we tweak it to fit and suit our cultural behavior, our social behavior, the way we think, the way we live as a people, as Africans? Perhaps. So going back to Burkina Faso, on the 18th of April 2024, Burkina Faso expelled French diplomats and staffers before, of course, all of these things that they're now doing became possible. France, of course, insisted at the time they will not leave the country unless, of course, a legitimately democratically elected government asks them to. In the end, of course, it was evident that the Burkinabe people, the power actually belongs to the people. And it was evident in the fact that the people stood by their government, whether it's military or not, and France had to leave. And that, of course, was a time where there was a bit of uncertainty because, of course, on the African continent, we've had times where we've had, episodes of military rule, military taking over powers, and things didn't pan out well, of course. So it was a bit uncertain. And, of course, the media, the mainstream media, the Western media would have, fanned it so much so that there was a lot of fear. However, a year after, 2 years after, and 3 years after, we can see that these countries that have taken the bull by the horn are probably doing even better than the others that are still, running after the whims and caprices of their masters. Now, agriculture remains the backbone of Burkina Faso's economy, with over 70% of the population depending on farming for their livelihood. Okay, in recent years, the country has focused on improving agricultural techniques, diversifying crops, and increasing local production by investing in irrigation systems and innovative farming practices. Like I mentioned earlier, farming is the quickest, agriculture is the quickest place we can go in tapping into seeing. First of all, we have to be able to feed ourselves, okay? And what's left can be used to provide gain and income for other things. So Burkina Faso is not only feeding its people, but also generating exports, reducing dependency on foreign food aid. I did make a post on this platform about this is an opportunity for Africa to finally relieve herself from the shackles of Western power and say no to aid. And somebody made a comment about people suffering with AIDS and medicine, how they're going to get that. And I did comment back to the person, we need to educate ourselves because we have been so dependent on aid freebies, what looks like freebies, but really not free in the right sense of it. Our governments have the ability to provide these things that we think that the foreign countries or the aid is providing. By the time we put our act together and make sure that corruption is brought to the bare minimum, because the truth is corruption is never going to go away. Corruption can never, ever go away, not even in the Western countries. There's corruption everywhere. However, institutionalizing corruption is what the problem is in Africa. So when we get to the place where our leaders are driven by the need of their people and for their people, and wanting to make things better, and not just wanting to steal the resources that we have and take it abroad, which eventually is always stolen in the name of seizing it. But they are these foreign countries where they take the monies to do not stop these monies from coming into their countries, but it cannot leave. Okay, so these are gaps that governments on the African countries can fill. Even the medications that HIV patients need can be, because ask yourself, how much exactly is the money that we receive from aid for these things that we're talking about? Recently, with the expose from the American Senate, who exposed that most of the monies sent by in the name of US aid was going to terrorists, it then shows that majority of the money was going to other unscrupulous means, and not even going to, the whatever it is they've tagged it as. So if you compare that with the amount of money stolen by African politicians and taken out of the continent, we can provide these things for ourselves, and we do not have to rely on aid. All right? Because these aid always come with shackles around our necks. And FYI, a lot of the monies that come back to Africa as aid is actually Africa's money. Our resources are taken from the back door, and then in broad daylight, they bring just a little pittance back in the name of charity or aid. So we celebrate them. Talk about loving your abuser, celebrating your abuser. That's Africa's story. That's what Africa's story has been. Okay, so even the aid that we get it's not free, it's ours. Okay? So in addition, of course, to agriculture, Burkina Faso has been fostering a thriving entrepreneurial spirit across the country. Small businesses are thriving, driven by a growing number of young people who are starting businesses in technology. Just the other day, I saw on the news electric cars built in Burkina Faso. You know, the young man, President Traore, is just... I sit down, and the thought of him as a leader just brings so much joy and envy. Of course, driven by a growing number of young people who are starting businesses in technology, trade, and manufacturing. Of course, these entrepreneurs are creating jobs. Yeah, they're boosting local economies, the local economy, and slowly shifting the narrative away from aid dependency to economic empowerment. So this thing can be done. We, the people, can create these jobs for ourselves. Yeah, we can provide employment for ourselves. We are the most resilient and creative set of people on the planet Earth. Now, technology too has been a key driver of change in Burkina Faso. It is. Like I already mentioned, electric cars are being built. They're locally produced. All right. The other thing is us consuming what we produce, because we have to be our market. We have to be the primary market before we start looking to export. Now, through local innovation hubs and the rise of tech savvy youth, there's a lot of young people on the continent who are tech savvy. All right. So Burkina Faso is tapping into the digital economy as well, creating software apps and digital platforms that not only address local needs, but now expanding to regional markets.